Welcome back to another non-fungible Tuesday, and it is a fantastic week this week as we look into the rebound, the rebirth of NFT mania. Well, not quite mania just yet, but the quote-unquote bear market or the winter that we've been enduring seems to be thawing at the very least. If you guys are excited for this one, we have a jam-packed show for you with amazing guests like Zenica 33, Carson Daly, and of course, we're going to be talking about all kinds of projects and shining a light on those that are providing a ton of value to their holders. That's right. This one is one you don't want to miss. You're going to want to watch this one front to back. Go ahead, destroy that like button, and make sure you're over on my Twitter where I've just tweeted out the instructions that you could enter to win a very special NFT today. So make sure that you're following, make sure you actually share the post and that you go ahead and comment and follow those instructions. You have to be following 888. You have to be following 888 The New World. Go ahead, give Carson Daly and Zenica a follow as well as Mr. Bitbender. I'm going to go ahead and drop a follow up here. Make sure you are following these instructions. Trust me. We gave away a CyberKong last week, and that CyberKong is now worth 3.5 Ethereum. It's a lot of money just for a tweet. So make sure you're following along. Now, guys, let's hop right in here because there is just so much to cover. A few seconds here on the chat. We have a few people pumping projects. Guys, just so you know, just because you drop a super chat, I'm not just going to go ahead and shout it out. It's really important that you understand that people kind of like to snip these live streams and put them on Twitter, and it can be misleading. So I'm not just going to shout out a project just because you throw a super chat. But big shout out to all you in the chat right now. Let's dive into the content. All right. So where we are right now is we're going to make it. That's where we are. The reality is, though, that if you guys aren't using WGMI.io, highly recommend it. This is a site that allows you to track floor prices. And as you can see, we have a nice little smattering here. Some of the top collections like Elevated Deconstructions having a nice dip. For me, this is a welcome dip because projects like Elevated Deconstructions, I kind of wish I understood their role in the larger sort of generative art collection, specifically with art blocks. I wish I understood that a little bit more clearly because people are looking at Elevated Deconstructions as what's called like a bottleneck, or essentially it's the lowest quantity collection in the art blocks curated. So it got this astronomical price as people were sort of believing, hey, if someone wants a complete set, they need this ED. And so it got on a mad tear up to like hundreds of ETH floor. So seeing it come down a little bit, maybe to earth, is not a bad thing. And of course, if you want a complete set, you could look at this as a gift from the generative art gods. Meanwhile, we do see a lot of bouncing coming in here, and there's actually a theme that we're going to be pointing out, and the theme is actually merging the two worlds that we love so much, which are NFTs and cryptocurrency itself. And what we're seeing is that the merging of those is creating some astronomical results here. So without going through all these, because we're going to bring in the expert himself, Zenica, in just a minute here to really cull through this and help us understand where the trends are shifting, we want to shine a light here on some projects that are actually doing really well. And as we get into this, just know that this OpenSea volume, this mania that we had, carried us up to like $300 million volume on OpenSea each day. And we dipped down as low as, what was this, 45 million there. So a significant drop off here, right? Where we're seeing a massive corrective volume change. But now we're seeing a little bit of a bounce back. Is this just a little, dead cat bounce on the volume? Or are we starting to see a re-enlivening of this crypto ecosystem, of this NFT ecosystem? I personally think that this is very natural. And if we see all-time charts here on OpenSea volume, I mean, it's a little hard with this massive spike, but what you'll see is that there are these spikes all along the way that ended up leading to even more adoption. And I think it's very clear where NFTs are headed, which is to be massive mainstream consumer products. So you definitely need to understand that these hiccups, these downtimes are huge features, not bugs here. And they allow for people to get into collections that they may have been dreaming of. And I think that it's a really awesome chance for those who are really focused on the long-term value. Now, that said, the news of the day, in my opinion, is Cool Cats. Cool Cats have absolutely been crushing it. Let me go ahead and make their this a little bigger. Cool Cats have absolutely been crushing it because they've introduced something called Milk. And if you see here, this is an ERC20 token that they're going to be airdropping to holders passively per Cool Cat held per day. Now, we're going to get to exactly the project that inspired this, hint, it's CyberKongz, but this is a really interesting mechanism that is actually introducing a DeFi mechanism, a passive yield strategy on top of this NFT strategy. And what we've seen when those two are combined, especially as DeFi is heating up again, I said about a month ago that I was rotating heavily back into DeFi, and we're seeing massive growth in the DeFi economy. And so projects and NFT projects that accurately and very effectively combine passive yield with their NFT collections, as well as we're seeing more airdrops, because we're seeing that actually there's a frog or an egg airdrop coming to the Cool Cat collection here, and that there will be gamification here. So they're saying that there will be creatures and eggs under 4 elements. They're saying gamification will be involved, and that different tiers of cats could play into the eggs/milk. So what I love here is that what we saw with the mutant drop of Bored Ape Yacht Club is that the more layers of gamification and game theory you can invoke here, the deeper the collection experience becomes, and the more decisions sort of start emerging, the more you can start big braining the whole collection process. When there's just a collection and you know which ones are more rare than others, it's not really that complex. You can just say, okay, well, this is a really rare one, I'm going to go splurge on it, or it should be more valuable than this one, which is a floor model. Whereas as you start to layer in the concept of eggs, milk, potentially creating complete sets as they did with Bored Apes and the mutants, that to me layers in a much deeper universe that brings bigger communities and more hardcore communities. So I couldn't be a bigger fan of this. Obviously, as you guys have seen on Twitter, I changed my profile pic back to the Cool Cat here, as you can see down here, just out of respect. So if you guys are excited for this, if you're holding Cool Cats, obviously I've been covering this project since about end of May, early June. So if you guys are excited for what they're doing here, smash that like button. And of course, show some love to the cat, change your PFP to the cat for this, I think, a big week for the cats. Anyway, is it any surprise here? Look at this volume signature here. See, yesterday, as this information started to really trickle out and people realized how big this would be, we see a massive volume spike of about 2,500 Ethereum, almost $8 million or so, $7.5 million, massive volume here. And the only day that's actually been bigger than that is up here, which kind of marked the top, or this sort of kind of blow off top phase. But just like I told you, the high quality collections with really dedicated user bases and communities, they're going to rebound from these dips, whereas other projects are going to go to zero. And you need to understand and really work hard to understand that, like, not every mint is going to have this chart. It's only the super high quality projects that are going to be able to endure dips and make it out to the other side, because this is going to most charts here in NFT land, especially as new, like the flood and saturation has started to really overwhelm the demand. That's going to really damage these new projects. Whereas the blue chips, which is obviously a vague term, but the projects that have really hardcore communities, those will be the ones where dips are bought, and those will be the ones where the price can recover. And so this is a really important lesson here. Another project that's done fantastically over the course of this dip has been the Subducks. And that's because we are in the midst of September here, which is, as you can see, who can't love this, like Nickelodeon themed sort of like 90s animation vibes. I don't know. It's just absolutely amazing what the Subducks do, the sort of emotions that they convey. I gave away some Subducks at the beginning. And by the way, if we look here, the average trade for a Subduck is over 1 Ethereum right now, and the floor is over 1 Ethereum. So this is why it pays. And I think we did our giveaway like back here or something like that. It was only like 0.33. For the good collections in NFT land, the diamond hands are always winning. But it's a really big month. Again, what are Subducks doing? They're doing a Volt, an ERC20 fungible token, as well as they're having the King Frog drop on the 30th. Yep, it's no wonder that the floor is climbing fast. Again, what are you seeing? DeFi mechanisms, airdrops, deeper community and lore. And in this case, let me see if I can find it. The merch drop was actually really interesting looking. Obviously kind of crazy, maybe not everyday attire, but this is some pretty cool stuff here. I definitely want to get my hands on some of this, if not only just for awesome gifts, but I feel like this Subduck merch is going to end up definitely some of the more sought after NFT based merch. And you're seeing here these ecosystems forming. It's not just a JPEG. It's not just a community. It's ongoing airdrops, ERC20s for playing ball. And what I'm about to show you is going to put in perspective, because a lot of people are like, so what? They create some random coin. How is that value? But if we see here, what we actually can observe here from the cyberkongs, again, I've been telling you guys about the cyberkongs nonstop. I think the floor was under 2 ETH or 1 ETH when we first started talking about it. Now the floor for the babies is almost 3.5 ETH. And what's really crazy about the cyberkongs is that the Genesis kongs, if we filter by the Genesis kongs, and by the way, the Genesis were like 30 ETH when we started talking about them. That was actually the wrong bucket here. The Genesis kongs now have a floor of 62 ETH, and it's only a couple here before you get to 70, and really probably like 10 or 20 of them before you get to close to 100. So the actual floor here for the cyberkongs is growing like crazy, and all of these Genesis kongs earn 10 banana a day. I know this sounds crazy, but look, bananas hit $28 today. At that rate, if I'm earning 10 bananas a day for each Genesis Kong I have, that means I'm making almost $100,000 worth of passive yield on my Genesis Kongs. So understand, like, this might seem like a little bit crazy, but people are actually earning an executive salary just for holding these 2D pixel art profile pics. And this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the wild economy that will be the metaverse. And in my opinion, it's just getting started. On that note, if you guys are excited for what's going on here and you understand that these good collections are actually growing despite the fact that there's a quote unquote winter, smash that like button. Let's bring on our first guest, Zenica, because I'm desperate to hear his observations on what's going on here across the NFT space. Thank you so much for joining us, Zenica. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back.
Happy to be back as always.
Well, I'm really curious. I know you were on a little bit of a hiatus. I hope you had a great vacation. I was following along, jealously so, as you were on your yachts. But what I'm really interested in is what, from your perspective, is going on here, because it does feel like there's a little bit of a thawing of the ice. I'm not quite convinced that that's over yet. I think that we might have a little bit more, quote unquote, winter or less mania phase, which is probably very good, probably very healthy. But does it feel like, from your perspective, that things are kind of like reversed, or are we just sort of stopping the bleeding?
So yeah, I've been away for the last three and a bit weeks. So I've not been as in tune with the market as usual, but I couldn't stop myself from checking, every single day the prices basically. And I saw that the first week I was away, things went absolutely crazy. And that was sort of the peak. And I think everyone that had been in the space for a while was sort of saying the same thing. The market is overheated, it is oversaturated. There are so many new projects launching, so many, the supply is going up so high. Even though demand is going up, it's not enough to match these crazy prices and these new drops. And so, I mean, a lot of people have been saying that for 1 month, 2 months, 2.5 months. And I think we all thought that there was a correction coming. We just didn't know when or how big or significant it would be. And so that's basically what we've seen the last couple of weeks. Prices hit insane numbers and then came crashing down. And I think that it's somewhat healthy. It was obviously unsustainable to just keep going up forever. That just can't happen. And because I think of the illiquidity of NFTs, that basically when prices start dropping, people start panicking and start undercutting one another on the floor. And it's sort of like a race to the bottom. And if there aren't enough buyers because the market is panicked, then you can really get sharp declines really, really quickly. And so I think we saw a lot of projects have dipped 50% from their peak. But the thing that, I mean, some even more, 80, 90% for the less blue chippy type projects. But when you zoom out and take a step back and you look at where they were, say, 2 months ago, most of these projects, they're still up 5x. So it's like a small dip in the grand scheme of things. And I think it's like a healthy accumulation phase that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I couldn't help but feel like people are going to look back on this moment and just think, what if? Just like they were thinking back on June and May and thinking, oh, what if I had just pulled the trigger? And I feel like that is, I don't think I've ever felt such FOMO and regret as I do with NFTs. I don't know we can get a psychologist on next week to sort of break that down. But I think that there's something really amazing where we're seeing these assets, which seem on their face just to be JPEGs, really evolving into a lot more. We're seeing it with cyberkongs really pushing that front lines of the DeFi passive yield strategy. I wouldn't surprise me to see a Bored Apes introduce some kind of passive yield token. I think it would be pretty crazy if they didn't. And then I also are seeing You're seeing the crazy success from Cool Cats and from SupDucks. It's very clear that this is starting to evolve into a multi-asset ecosystem, passive yield, and then of course expanding scopes. So while it might seem like this is like a very, simple art project on its face, what we're seeing is that these projects are actually becoming quite complex, quite ambitious, and that they actually represent a unique store of value, really.
No, I agree completely. And it's not just that they're growing their communities with airdrops and, new companion drops and ERC20 tokens, which on the surface, there's no real value to that because it's just more JPEGs and these tokens. But as you said with the Cool Cats, they're alluding to building a game, and there's going to be like metaverse implications, and a lot of other projects are signaling similar things. Where when you have play to earn games, like we've seen the success with Axie, Zrun, if these projects can launch into that sort of arena, then the early holders, they're just naturally going to get huge benefits for being early supporters, as any projects early supporters tend to do very well. And I think another thing is that with a lot of these projects, they launched with 10,000 NFTs basically. And that was fine and great a few months ago when the market wasn't as mature as it is now. But now 10,000 is just not enough. There are so many people flooding into the space every day that want into these projects. And the prices are too high for a lot of them because, the supply and demand mechanics. And so you see things like the mutants where, there's a lower price point. And I think introducing ERC20 tokens is another way for people who may not care about JPEGs or NFTs, but they want exposure to a collection or they want to be involved with the space. They can just buy the token and, support it that way. Maybe there's utility for the token outside of the NFT world. I'm sure there will be. So I think it's all very cool, and we're still very early, I think. And, prices have dropped a lot. And I myself basically stopped buying for the last month. I was selling bits and pieces because things had gone crazy. But the last couple of days, I've been starting to buy again. And I think I'm starting to see the market turn around a bit. And I mean, no one really knows what's going to happen. It could start bleeding again, could drop off again. But I mean, my personal investing view, obviously not financial advice, but I have a long-term view. So I think that anything like a solid project, a legitimate project now is going to do very well in, say, a 1, 2, 3 year time horizon. So I don't mind buying now and holding for that long.
So what do you think people need to be looking at from a metrics and data standpoint to understand where the movement's happening? Because I feel like people, the biggest sort of Achilles heel right now for NFTs feels like people don't know how to track performance. Like we go on CoinGecko, I see that I'm up 15%, easy. Right. But then I have maybe I have a rare Cool Cat. I do, not a flex, but maybe I do. How do I know how my rare Cool Cat's tracking? Like, how do I know how this collection as a whole and the health of it's tracking? What do you think are the metrics, again, for those who might be newer here, to really identify the good movers? And what are those metrics saying about sort of certain collections right now? Where's the motion of the ocean from a data standpoint?
All right, let me share my screen because I did my stats as I usually do. Where are we? Window. There we go. Can you see that?
I can indeed, and so can everyone else.
Excellent. So normally I do these stats on a day-to-day basis, but because I was away for so long, today I basically did it for the first time in 3 weeks. And so you can see here, I had the floor price on the 23rd of last month, and then I have them today. So we sort of get a snapshot of what has happened over the last 3 weeks. And despite having, a huge correction, we can still see a ton of projects. They're up significantly. I mean, VFriends and Blipmaps are up 3x, 2.5x. And, Bored Ape Yacht Club's doing well. Cyberkongs, as you mentioned, they're up 50%. The floor price went from 40 to 60. So a lot of these, blue chip tier 1 projects, they are still performing really well. And, it's well and good to say they're blue chips, you should invest in them. But, at 20 to 80 ETH, it's not something that is very approachable for many. So I tend to, when we have a big correction, I look towards sort of the bottom half of the chart. And that's where I would sort of draw a parallel to regular crypto markets, where when there's a massive correction, Bitcoin and Ethereum might go down 20, 30, 50%, but a lot of the altcoins, they'll go down 90 to 95%. And if those coins are still, there's a good team and a good product, then they will generally recover. And that's where the massive gains can be in those altcoins. And so I'd say the same thing with these alt NFT projects. Obviously, it's higher risk than buying the blue chips. That's just part of the game. But with higher risk generally comes higher reward. So I'd be looking at some of these projects that have been bleeding harder than others. Like you can see here, we've had a bunch that have, fallen 50, 60, 70% in some cases. I would look into them. I think that's where the biggest gains are going to be. And you can buy legitimately good projects for, 0.05 to 0.1 ETH. I don't want to name any specific project just because I haven't been in tune with any of them lately. So I would just recommend join their Discords, see what the community is like. Is it just full of doom and gloom and panic? And is everyone, racing for the bottom? And if that's the case, maybe you don't want to get involved. But if there's, just a core group of supporters, people who are there for the long run and are not too phased about the price, then I would consider buying into, any of these projects that have taken a bit of a battering, but the team's still there. They're still working on their roadmap. Maybe they're coming out with their own ERC20 token. It's just not as hyped as the cool cats, not getting as much attention on Twitter. Obviously, the higher priced projects tend to get more attention, and at a certain point, it maybe becomes too much attention, price gets overinflated, and then there's another correction. But you want to catch the projects before they get all that attention. So
it's a weird sort of attention concentration game where essentially the worry with some of these NFT projects is that if they fall too much out of the attention economy, even though the prices become very appetizing, the question is, how do they actually captivate people again? And I think your advice to join Discords is the number one for me, and people just don't do this. The more I say it, the less people do it. And it's just crazy because my decision to join the CyberKongs was 100% based off of being in that Discord. I got a baby Kong because people were like, oh, it's really cool. And then within like a day of being in there, I was convinced. I was like, this is such an amazing community. The information was top tier, super welcoming, not elitist. And I just felt like this was a group of people I wanted to sort of be around, right? And I was like, let's do this. Let's jump in. I had no idea. In fact, I didn't really believe the passive yield would hold up in my mind. That's like very flimsy. But at the same time, it's held up great. I hope it does continue. Again, who knows? But it's important to realize this is all super experimental. But the experiment is one of social nature. So when you actually get your hands dirty on the social communities, you can actually see where the motion is. Like, for example, Bored Apes, that could drop another 50, 60%. It's not going anywhere, in my opinion, right? And it's just such a strong community. As always, man, we really appreciate having you on the stream. We hope to have you guys back soon. If you guys are not already following Zenica33, what are you doing? At Zenica_33, tagged in the post here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. If you guys aren't following Zenica, he's tagged. Definitely follow Crypto 888, The New World, as well as our next guest coming up right now, Carson Daly and Bitbender. Again, if you guys don't want free, massively valuable NFTs, don't share it. Don't share it. Don't do that. As always, man, I appreciate it, and we hope to have you back very soon.
No, good to be here.
Thank you. So anyway, now our next guests are actually fantastic thought leaders in the space, and both are from very different but very synergistic projects that are now partnered in 888 The New World and their spokesperson, Carson Daly of TRL fame, as well as Jason Bitbender from Gala Games. Both projects are fantastic and pushing innovation in different ways. Please smash up those likes for them because this is going to be a fantastic deep dive conversation. You're definitely going to want to stick around and catch this whole conversation because there's going to be a ton of alpha drops. Make sure you smash those likes. Make sure you share the stream. And thank you guys so much for joining us.
Hey, man. How you doing today?
Very well. Thank you for joining. Carson, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you? Hi, Jason.
Hello, Carson. Wonderful to see you again.
Wonderful to see you.
This is a little bit more normal now than our last actual in-person session that we had.
I know, and I'm not hungover, but we're also not in Vegas.
That is true. We are not in Vegas.
Well, I appreciate you guys hopping on. And maybe just for those who somehow maybe aren't following you already, maybe you guys could give a brief intro about yourselves, your projects, and then we can dive into some more topical discussions.
Sure. I'll let Carson go first.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Carson Daly. I am the Chief Experience Officer at 888 The New World. 888 The New World is the first NFT marketplace that is founded and built by artists and architects of the digital future. And I am hilarious.
Awesome. Well, I am Jason Bitbender Brink, and I work with Gala Games. We are working to give player ownership back to the players. We have a excellent executive group that all come from the gaming industry, and we all believe that players should have the ability to own their assets when they play games. That's basically the center of it, and we are the technology partner with 888 The New World. And we are working very hard at building out their awesome site, which will be on Flare, and we'll be able to do a lot of really, really cool things with that. And so that's why we're here.
Thank you guys so much for joining. And yes, we have a lot of little cookie crumbs we've laid here. Some really, really interesting projects brewing over there, both at 888 The New World, as well as with 888, who is a mysterious yet very impactful positive force here in crypto land. And of course, Gala Games, who is part of the Animoca family. And I've been a big fan of this project for quite some time. They're making a home on Flare Network, which is a very interesting concept. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. I couldn't help but notice one of the projects that Zenica highlighted there at the bottom of the list there that might be on a nice discount is the Vox project, which is a fantastic 3D collectible. Maybe we could talk about that as well. But I think it's a really interesting time where we've seen NFTs kind of reach the mountaintop. And then now, once again, despite the fact that volumes are in the tens of millions of trading per day on OpenSea, we're in this quote unquote icy bear market, and it's so funny to see this, and it happens pretty much across the crypto sphere. But I feel like NFTs get maybe even more so, kind of like people don't want to acknowledge this asset class. They want to see it kind of drop down. They want to see it go away. But it's not going away, and it's actually
doesn't make sense to most people. So, I mean, I think that there's a fundamental lack of understanding of exactly what's going on in the space.
Yeah.
And what is that? What is the exact action that's happening here? Because I try to explain it on almost every episode, but it continues to evolve, especially with gaming. It's just such an amazing thing that I think we're witnessing right now. Can you talk about, from the Gala Game side, what you're seeing behind the scenes?
Oh, absolutely. So first, though, before I do that, I want to walk you back just a tiny bit. We're actually not associated with Animoca. We're a totally separate thing. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get umbrellaed in there.
Correct. Yes. I believe they were an investor. I might have misread that.
So anyway, basically, the way that I look at NFTs in general, and specifically the sort of generative NFTs, you were just talking about Kongs and Vox and, other NFTs like this, is they're at the very fundamental level, they're part of identity. And, especially as, here we are on a digital call talking to one another. We spend all of our days on computers. We exist within this metaverse. Our digital identity is a very fundamental and foundational piece of who we are. And that's what these things begin to represent. People look at it and they're like, oh, explaining an NFT to my mother is kind of this hilarious thing, because she's like, so it's just on the internet then? But ultimately, at the end of the day, you are what's in your wallet, essentially. And I think that is something that all of these projects tap into, and the communities like you were talking about are very, very important and make these projects what they are, Vox included.
Yeah, I really think the identity use case was one that I didn't see coming. I think I've been obsessed with gaming, and that use case, it seems very obvious, like Fortnite skins if you own them. That's like super easy, right? Everyone's like, oh, okay, I get it. But the idea that a JPEG would come to represent you, and that you would be you are this JPEG and vice versa, was something I did not quite see coming. But then once you see the 3D wearables and the ability to kind of bring these assets with you into these more robust digital worlds, it starts to become quite exciting. And then you peel back the layers on like why we buy anything. And it starts to become quite compelling. I guess for me, it's a question of how far away do you think we are from a truly immersive digital world? Because, my fiance is on TikTok and she's showing me the memes of somebody bought Charlie Bit My Finger video. What does it mean that they bought this when I can go watch it anywhere? Like, what does that mean? And they're actually using that like meme song in the background. Like, what does it mean? And I'm trying to explain it, but I'm like, I don't know if they're going to get it until they're actually just doing it in the metaverse, you know?
Sorry, I don't want to walk over you, Carson. Go ahead. Were you
No,
going to say something?
no, I don't know if the question was to you. I have thoughts, but I'll save them.
So for me, I think that you could make an argument that we do have an immersive metaverse to a certain extent right now. It's just fragmentary. It's bits and pieces. It's not yet unified. You know, we immerse ourselves. You know, it's kind of like, you know, jumping out of the pool and into the hot tub, you know, on a fairly regular basis in these different environments. But we've yet to have an environment that brings it all together. And I think that there's a lot of different things that can be done with that, especially if we start to get into the VR, AR side of stuff. But I would argue that the portals that we use, our phones and our computers, represent a doorway to this immersive universe. And it's probably about as good as it's going to get until we have actual VR, AR wearables that are not, you know, these big, gigantic sort of Damocles, you know, constructions.
Yeah.
And how big is, like, so what I've started noticing is the absolute kings right now are creators. And that's kind of a big change, you know, from just a couple of years ago where, you know, creativity in many ways had been commoditized and the value of it had been lowered tremendously for like work for hire for art. I've done a lot of hiring artists, and now artists are really starting to wake up to the fact that there's just a tremendous amount of value in what they provide, going back to people wanting to identify with this work. Like, I want to use this as my profile pic. I want to use this as my part of my gallery. So all of a sudden the value now is not just, I think it's cool, but I want to be cool, you know? And it's kind of a really interesting dovetailing of use cases. Now, I think that probably the project most focused on this is 888 The New World. And so I think it's really an amazing opportunity here for people to understand how big art is going to be in this new world we're creating.
I fully agree.
Yeah. And I think, you know, what we should also think about is like the 10,000 foot view of this, that it's not just about like the wearables, like Jason was saying, in these like immersive experiences and metaverses. Like, we are shifting and like deconstructing this whole like collective social stigma and consciousness around like how we present ourselves in our digital identities, where the focus has been on kind of what we look like and the life that we live, and even creating videos on your Instagram stories or Snapchat or Twitter about you and your Tesla or wearing your Rolex or rocking Supreme or standing in line. Like, that was a unifying thread. And that was all run by big corporations, right? Like, these are dollars and cents that are going to physical assets. And that's how we're unifying ourselves. And now we're recognizing that by changing our profile picture to signify that we are part of this larger community, and that, like you're saying, you know, we're supporting these artists, like, we're actually also single-handedly deconstructing this like narrative perpetrated by, you know, mainstream media and Hollywood, that it's, you know, what connects us and what makes us you know, desirable to build community and network is what we look like, what we have, the life that we live. When really, you know, now we're saying like it's just really about like a cartoon, and it's about, you know, setting this like 2D or 3D avatar that's part of a larger community that's capped at 10,000. We don't cap the manufacturing and production of Teslas or Rolexes, and even Supreme stuff that is limited quantity. You know, every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. PST, Supreme's going to have that drop. Like, there's just this like there's this tight knit circle, and there's a lot of like commentary and philosophy that's happening around, you know, our adoption and our collective consciousness of how we see ourselves and how we see ourselves building community.
Yeah, no, I think what's an interesting growth there is, you know, understanding that the reasons why we buy anything of designer or quality that is specifically branded in the real world is that we want to associate with these things, and effectively we want to, you know, show that we belong to certain, you know, tribes, and the actual ability to show that is magnified 100x on the internet. Of course it is, because, you know, if I have a Ferrari and I drive it out through LA, how many people are going to see me drive it on any given day? You know, 100, 500, maybe 1,000. Whereas we have 2,700 people watching us right now. Probably by the end of the stream, we'll have had 30,000 people pass through here. So how many more people are seeing my digital flex than my real flex? And so you start unpacking the layers. It's pretty easy to see why this stuff is starting to get quite addictive.
Yeah. I think sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that also, you know, that the economies that are being built within them, like you don't see Ferrari airdropping you something that will give, you know, being like, thanks for owning a Ferrari, here's another one. Like that's not happening where
baby Ferrari.
You're so kind, Ferrari.
Cyber Kongs, like, you know, you're, like you said, creating this like executive level salary to just be a part of that community. And I think that that's where this lesson comes in. A lot of people talk about utility, and utility is becoming another buzzword that's like oversaturated and overused. But really, like, utility is a two-way street. Like, it's also, I see that these teams are being motivated by their community, that, you know, they're wanting to put out more stuff. They're wanting to up their game. Like Cool Cats just announced this like backstory contest. Like you can write a backstory, you know, you get to showcase creative people, creative minds, like incentivize them to, you know, participate and engage. And then you're building, like these communities are building economies, and it is becoming like also play to earn in art, the same way that like I'm obsessed with play to earn models in gaming, which is why I love Gala, obviously.
I think one of the cool things about that too is the blockchain aspect of it. You know, you mentioned the Ferrari. Nobody is going to follow you home and look in your garage to see what other cars you might be driving. You know, what's your weekend driver? You know, this is your daily. What are you driving on the weekend? Oh, that's a nice Rolls. I mean, nobody does that, right?
I can't flex both my supercars at once. You're absolutely right.
You can't.
This is a big bug.
Yeah, with you know, blockchain, you have the ability to go like, oh, well, what's this? What else do they have? And, you know, that's a huge, gigantic thing. I mean, with 888 or Pranksy or any of the other people, you know, when they weigh in on something, it matters. People are like, oh, wow, okay, they're paying attention to this. Maybe they're seeing something I don't. And I think that makes a huge difference. Nobody goes and looks in your dresser to see what, you know, brands you have, or, you know, checks out the shoes other than what you're wearing at that very moment. You know, and I think that's cool.
And to be clear, I drive a 10-year-old car. Right? It's very, very old. But because why anyway? But I think one of the things that I is really important here is the identity aspect, which if you keep sort of unpacking the layers, it all comes down to that, right? Which is identity. I mean, we could start getting into a philosophical conversation about how important identity is in life. But as you start really peeling back the layers, you're like, okay, what am I really getting here? The more I get a rarer item in this ecosystem or something like that, the more that, especially the community aspects, which I'm doing a little bit of an experiment with my buddy Alex Becker, where we're essentially trying to create a community that's all earned, right? It's going to be free mints, and it's going to be like puzzles and riddles to get in. So it's not really about value creation. It's about community building and trying to sort of attract like-minded people. And so there's an identity, like at the core of that project is identity as well. And so I think there's quite an interesting sort of pathway through these assets where it's quite interesting to see that utility is identity at like its very core, which again brings us back to like art and these kinds of other concepts. It's something that I would have laughed at literally 6-8 months ago. But now I take very, very seriously. And I think that people, as much as this seems foreign to you, should be at least trying to digest these concepts, right?
Oh, for sure. It's critical to understanding this. Yeah,
I think also another good example of this is the hundreds with the Atom Bomb Squad. You know, they haven't revealed the metadata yet, and they revealed, you know, the token themselves have been revealed, and now within like their Discord in that Atom Bomb Squad community, which was a 25,000 token release, they are kind of creating their own like micro classes or micro classifications, and they are really like creating value, or they're the ones that are designating the value based on how that micro community within it is also growing and evolving. So it's really interesting to see how that, like what kind of that study tells us and what that use case is around like rarity and value and kind of, you know, determining that real true non-fungibility of it all.
And so as we start to talk about the utility and identity, people want to belong to tribes and groups. There's some really interesting experiments going on, one of which is absolutely catching my attention, which is, of course, 888's new experiment. And just to be clear, this is not the marketplace, 888 The New World. This is an experiment being conducted by 888 himself or herself. We don't know. But the reality is this is very, very compelling, these models, right? Maybe you have a little more of color of background on what's going on here, Carson?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's important to think about 888 as, kind of an artist and creator and curator in their own right too. And 888 The New World is a platform that we're building so that we can empower more artists and more creative people to have this like fair and equitable structure to be able to mint and sell their NFTs. And 888 as their own kind of creator and curator, we're thinking about 888 The Inner Circle as how we can kind of get ready for their drops and make it in a way that feels like it has longevity, similar to like Gary Vee and Gary Vee's model. Like it really demonstrates longevity and like a pure and honest intention in the space. And 888 has like just the most incredible plans for 888 Inner Circle. And because we also have the brand that we're building with 888 The New World, we're able to kind of leverage these two things together and create some really awesome opportunities, but without really shutting people out. So it is that like exclusive inclusivity where you feel like you're belonging to something and something that is being built. And 888 is really like, I haven't heard them say anything about, like it's mostly been about like airdrop this, airdrop, like really wants to give back to the community and really create something that deconstructs these like rarity kind of notions that we have and creates something that's more about value for the community long term and changing people's lives in whatever way we can figure out. And with this technology, the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, and you said something there that has been kind of like something I've been very interested in, which is exclusively inclusive, right? Exclusive inclusivity. Now, I really like to run this channel and this community in a very inclusive way. Yeah. And that has been my goal. But as things get to scale, it becomes very, very difficult, right? Yeah. Because people want to take advantage. People want to kind of poison the well, as it were, and kind of take away from the good actors. There will always be people who are less good actors. I'm not going to say they're bad, but that there's sort of a need for some kind of gating. And I've realized that the communities that do have some levels of gating, of exclusive inclusivity, to use your term, actually have a significantly higher level of value in discourse, and value and like communal value that everyone creates and contributes. Does it have to be exclusive, or is that just a stopping point that we're at right now, or is there a future where we can sort of open up the floodgates? Because that's one of the biggest criticisms here of NFTs is, come on, I can't join that club.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say that one of the things that I've found in, well, really everything is that you sort of get what you pay for. If people actually contribute something and they actually like take a stand and say, this is something that I like, this is something that I believe in, I will put in some amount of money. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge amount of money, okay, but something that basically says, look, I'm actually committed to this. It makes a massive difference. I mean, we have over 60,000 members in the Gala Games Discord, and we have something called Gala Gold. It's like $50 to become a member of Gala Gold, and it gets you access to a separate area of the Discord. And the difference in discourse between like the general chat and the Gala Gold room is massive. It's like absolutely massive, because in Gala Gold, they're talking about concepts. They're talking about, the deep intricacies of the project, the tech, the, various things that NFTs do and things like that. And, in the general chat, it's like 45%. Well, up until 2 days ago, it was 45% win Binance. And then that happened. And so now they don't say that anymore. And now they're saying win random other exchange that, and then
not very productive, right?
It's not super productive, right? But when people pay that $50 and they're like, yeah, I want to be a member of this. This matters to me. They bring their best self to the discussion. And I think that what 888 did with the Inner Circle, he had a drop. I don't recall. I was unfortunately not able to get in on the drop. I was driving at the time. So I don't actually know what the drop was priced at, but I know that, there was something there, right? And, that matters to people, even if it's just paying the gas fee to run the contract.
Right.
Those things matter.
Yeah, I think I'm very frozen. I think that, what we're seeing in like this, the decentralized and digital future is that brands have had this really transactional model. Like even when you're earning like loyalties and rewards, that is based on a spending structure. So for every dollar you spend, you get a dollar like reward system. That's still transactional. Like maybe you get something exclusive. Maybe you get like a gift card to the company. Like that money is still like that's still a container and like a little fountain of kind of redistributing the funds. And right now we're now shifting into this era of reciprocity, and we're able to actually, I think from the brand's perspective, the reciprocity to our community is that like what you get is inclusivity. Like we will accept you and take you in, and we want you to be here. And what we give you back is exclusivity. Like your participation and your kind of support is going to be acknowledged in that way. And I think that's where this kind of is all coming together. And you look at like DAOs, DAOs are intended to be these like plutocracies, these meritocracies, but they are being built as like plutocracies right now, kind of. And I think that, what people will understand about DAOs is that you can actually start to reward people based on their contributions, whether or not they're monetary, because time is money too. And we have a lot of resources to give. And we kind of are back to this like original, like cave person community building structure where everybody can have a role, and that role can be, magnified and recognized and celebrated in any way that the brand sees fit. And that's why, I really love what we're doing on the blockchain. And I think that that's also why people recognize 888, because they've done so much to give back and to, help launch people's kind of artist careers and creator careers, and now building a platform and now building, this inner circle. Like there's more and more layers of exclusivity, and everybody's welcome. And that's where the inclusivity comes in. Not that I can share any alpha on. I just love DAOs, so I bring them up.
DAOs are fun. I really like what you said there when you mentioned time, because one of the things that's really critical to us in the blockchain gaming space, the concept of play to earn, and with an emphasis on play. Like play is an actual important thing. It goes back to caveman times too. Playing stick hoop or whatever. Play is a very essentially human thing. And when you contribute to a community, you contribute in dialogue, you contribute in time, you might contribute in money, that's fine. But American Express doesn't care how much I talk about how great American Express is. They'll never reach out to me and be like, Jason, that was a great tweet. That's never going to happen. But in this world that we're building, we are developing ways where we can be like, hey, look, you played that game and you did it really, really well. You brought a new person to the ecosystem. You said something smart. You contributed. All of that matters. And we can create ways to reward people for all of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what you guys are talking about, you're kind of getting towards is a question I have, which is we are kind of seeing this creator-driven model as the new model. And my question is we had an experiment, or a few of them, that kind of took place over the last 10 days or so, where we're seeing maybe it's not even far enough in community ownership, meaning specifically around the loot and bloot and everything oot. And the whole concept here is that instead of providing actually fully formed creative, you're actually providing just building blocks and frameworks that communities then completely own, and then they build from the bottom up towards creative, towards value on that framework. Is this model that we're in right now, is this still just a little bit of an intermediary step to full community ownership, to full decentralized creative. I mean, I do wonder whether, you know, I was thinking, hey, look, well, everyone can own a piece of this game economy. Everyone can own a piece of this this decentralized IP, if you're going to call that what Bored Apes is. But is that far enough, or should they literally be owning, you know, the base atomic particle and then building on top of that? You know, like it kind of starts to get really exciting when you think about what kicking these kind of infrastructures out in the world looks like. Or is that just a fad, right? And we really need the creators, and the creators are really the engine.
I think that there's definitely two ways to look at this. I mean, loot, I think, is a fantastic concept because it takes something. I mean, I'm actually wearing a Dungeons and Dragons shirt right now. Okay, so I'm very familiar with loot tables. Loot is an interesting thing because it is essentially narrative fodder, right? When you have this list of things, the immediate thing becomes, where did this come from? Why was it in the bag? Who carried it there? You know, that creates the opportunity and opens the door for, you know, a game-like experience. On the other hand, I also think that creators, be it artists or game designers, are going to be in the long term very, very, very important. It's kind of the difference between playing a game like D&D, where you're sitting there, you're experiencing the theater of the mind, and you're you know, participating in a collective fiction with a group of people. Or do you want to, you know, have beautiful visuals in front of you that take time and money to create, and a, you know, well thought out game economy? Like, there's definitely two sides, and I think that in the long term they'll both be there.
I think also there's something to be said about like how, you know, when you don't actually know, like a lot of people talk about like roadmap and wanting to know everything. Like when you leave a little bit of mystery, like maybe that mystery is actually just waiting to see like how the community responds and what they want. Like you have a chance to actually, you know, have your story unfold. And I always like to say, with 888 The New World and everything that we're doing right now, like we're watching, like if everything is happening in real time, like it's all unfolding at once. And as like culture is evolving, we also have this technology to be able to document and record and kind of provide provenance to it on the blockchain and via our phones, where like when we were kind of slowly starting to adopt the world of like, in the technology of like short form content and Vine and even like streaming and all of that, like we weren't at the same time, like we were learning while doing. And now like we are kind of learned and also now doing something new. So we can kind of document and recognize that. And this project like Loot, you know, I think there's a big opportunity to be able to take a look at and listen to the community and what they're saying and build more layers based on what they want and what their feedback is. And like, that's truly like, that's ownership to me.
Well, I, first of all, agree with a lot of the sentiments you guys just put out. And I feel like this conversation could literally go on and on for hours as we peel through the metaverse. But I think there's something really exciting, which is, of course, Mr. Bitbender, you have a very, very exciting giveaway for the people. And in order to be eligible, I just want to be clear here, you must retweet, you must be following both of the lovely guests on the show today, as well as 888 Crypto, and just for good measure, follow 888 TNW as well. I hashtagged, but make sure you follow the @ as well. And what are these lovely people going to potentially win here? So
before I tell them what they're going to potentially win, I want to tell them why it's awesome. Because, you know, kind of like you were talking about with your last guest, you know, there's this concept of utility and what does it do? And, you know, with your Kongs, you get bananas and things like that. People looked, when we first did the Vox drop, people looked at it and they're like, okay, great, another thing, this is cool. I don't know what it does yet. We are on the verge of rolling out a full play to earn ecosystem for the Vox. Right now, there's the Townstar series that has been dropped. There are other series that are going to be coming in the future. But the Townstar series is always going to be one of the absolute critical first like Genesis group. But basically, you're going to be able to take your Vox, drop it into a world, and you are going to be able to play with it and earn Vox coin. And this is going to be, to a certain extent, dependent on the rarity of your Vox. So the more rare your Vox is, like 888's amazing farm bot that he has, the more Vox coin you will be able to earn. And you'll be playing, you'll be interacting. It's a very, very, very cool, well fleshed out metaverse with lots and lots and lots. There you go, a sheep.
They're
Brilliant.
so cute.
Brilliant. The sheep
there
are
will
amazing.
be no bigger clout in the metaverse than that.
I don't know, man. I am partial to the chickens. I just have to say, I like the chickens, especially the colorful ones. Very cool. But yeah, so your Vox is your key to accessing this, and quite literally, like, you'll be able to go in and log in with a Web3 interface and then access the world with your Vox, where you'll be able to fly around. You can actually do that right now. There's just the play to earn part isn't there, but you can have rocket shoes and go, fly all over the world that has been created. Oh, and hey, spider tanks. That's a whole other thing.
Oh, I messed up. Guys, ignore this. Just kidding. Don't.
Yeah. Don't pay any attention to the beautiful MOBA right now that you will be able to play here shortly. But yeah, we have a Vox that is on right now. It's over $1,000 right now to get this one. So that could potentially be yours. Just saying.
Make sure you retweet. Make sure you comment. Milk critical. Make sure you're following our lovely guests. Again, $1,000 giveaway just for being here. We're going to be doing it provably fair, retweet, picker, giveaway. Follow my Twitter. Make sure you have those bell notifications on. Gosh, I'm so thankful to have you guys on. This was an amazing chat. We'll have to have you guys back soon. Keep your eyes glued to the screen for updates from Gala Games, for updates from 888 The New World, and of course, 888 Inner Circle, which is the new exclusive, inclusive club from the legend himself. Thank you guys so much.
Do we want to do something with the Inner Circle too? I mean,
that's up to 888.
Massive collab happening right in front of your eyes, guys.
We'll see.
Any final words for the audience?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you guys all next time.
Up only.
There you go. Thank you guys so much. Well, there you have it. A deep discussion covering all things, both NFT and metaverse. And make sure you guys are following Gala Games. Make sure you're entered to win. As always, the NFT space is chock full of development, of excitement, of growth, of change. What's going on here, I believe, will be the biggest change to the crypto ecosystem, and by extension, our modern internet, our modern digital economy that we're going to see. NFTs are filled with opportunity. This is like Bitcoin in 2012. It is going to be crazy volatile. You could lose your shirt, or you could make it literally overnight here. It's so crazy what's going on in NFT land. The risk, the reward, the excitement, the philosophy, as you can see, the rabbit hole just gets deeper. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been an awesome episode of Non-Fungible Tuesdays. Make sure you guys are subscribed with bell notifications on, because we're not just waiting till Tuesday to give you the newest and truest. Each and every update here on the channel might have some NFT gems in it. So make sure you guys are subbed with the bell notification on. As always, I'm Elio Trades. You can find me on Twitter at Elio Trades. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.